don't already know, I'm a massive Marvel nerd, and obviously you do know that Spider-Man No Way Home is out next week, and if you don't know that, clearly you have only just come out of your mom's vagina. The thing I've always loved the most about Spider-Man are his villains. They're all so good, and there's been so many different versions of villains across movies and TV shows and comics, and I therefore preferred some versions of characters over others. And so far, the biggest thing about Spider-Man No Way Home is returning villains, and Andrew and Toby, they're fucking in the movie. To put it simple, I love Spider-Man, and this is going to be my list of the top 5 villains in Spider-Man. By the way, I'm counting different versions of villains from different shows and movies as different characters. For example, the Doc Ock from Spider-Man 2 is very different from the Doc Ock on Ultimate Spider-Man. So, you know, lads, just remember to leave a like, subscribe, and give me a nice comment telling me to go kill myself. Okay, at number 5, I'm giving this to Tombstone from Spectacular Spider-Man.
In my life, I've been called many names. My favorite is Tombstone.
There's one simple fact about Tombstone. He's a fucking badass. At first, his character in the show is just a scary sounding voice. He pays Norman Osborn to create Sandman and Rhino until Spider-Man finds out about him, and on their first meeting, he shows why he's the fucking alpha. I love how he offers Spider-Man a job, and when Peter refuses because he can't ever look the other way again because of how Uncle Ben died, he then calls the police because he claims Spider-Man attacked him even though he is a crime boss. And I just love how he has that criminal empire, and the world doesn't even know about it. From that moment, there is essentially a war between Spider-Man and Tombstone's criminal empire. The final fight wasn't the most epic though, but it's still a great moment. It goes from everyone watching Spider-Man and Tombstone working together to about 5 minutes later where Spider-Man introduces him as the big man of crime.
Captain George Stacy, meet L. Thompson Lincoln, alias Tombstone, alias the big man of crime.
But yeah, he is someone not to be fucked with, and I love how he doesn't care too much about destroying Spider-Man until he meets Venom and offers him the same job.
If you really want a job, you'll have to prove yourself. Pass one simple test. Destroy Spider-Man.
Tombstone from Spectacular Spider-Man is easily the best version of him. Number 4, I'm giving to the Green Goblin from Ultimate Spider-Man.
Too late, Spider-Man! Or should I say, Peter Parker?
What?
Goblin for me is either he's amazing or shit. He's one I'm really excited to see return in No Way Home. Goblin is one of Spider-Man's greatest enemies, but most times he's just Norman Osborn in a costume on a glider throwing pumpkin bombs. To me, that isn't Spider-Man's greatest rival. So the reason I love the one from Ultimate Spider-Man is because he straight up turns into this big, hulky, monstrous looking goblin. Just look at this first transformation scene. That is someone that does look fucking dangerous. In Ultimate Spider-Man, he's clearly more powerful than most villains. Nick Fury claims him to be the most dangerous man on the planet. And that show is in the same universe as the Avengers as well. But I also love how he still is basically the same Goblin. He's fucking insane. He has his glider, he has his pumpkin bomb, and he's actually way smarter than he seems. He was the big bad for the first and second season finale. This show made him quite a big deal of a villain. In the Christmas special, when Peter has a dream of him quitting being Spider-Man, Goblin takes over the world and has destroyed the Avengers and S.H.I.E.L.D. and even lifts Thor's hammer. What the fuck?
For everything else you did when I wasn't here to stop!
He bonds with the Venom symbiote in one episode, which turned him into almost unstoppable and forced Spider-Man to work with Doc Ock. He also jumps from multiple dimensions to steal DNA from other Spider-Men. On that mission, he meets the Miles Morales Goblin, aka the one who destroyed Spider-Man in Miles' universe. And that one was actually fucking scary. He nearly killed Spider-Man again, and later in season 4, they bring him back. In his first episode, he nearly destroys the entire universe. I don't want to fuck with him. Also, he's the first actual villain to find out Spider-Man was Peter Parker in the show. And in that episode, it just shows how crazy and evil he actually is. He goes as far to threaten his own son just to spite Peter.
What about your friends, Peter? Should I visit them too? I know where Harry Osborn lives. Could you protect him as well?
You wouldn't hurt your own son, Norman. You love your son.
Norman, what are you talking about? I am the Goblin.
The last moment of him being Goblin in the show was when he used yellow Spider-Man DNA to become the Spider Goblin. Now that was a powerful villain. It takes 7 different Spider-Men to team up to finally defeat him, which is why later in the final season, Doc Ock and Mordo bring the Miles Goblin from his universe. And one thing I forget to mention about the Miles Goblin, he straight up gives 0 fucks and kills Baron Mordo. Okay, mate. Number 3, I'm actually going to give it to Venom from the 90s Spider-Man cartoon.
Spider-Man, enjoy your fame while it Yes!
Honestly, at first, I didn't know if I wanted to even put Venom on this list. He's my favorite Marvel character of all time. And I actually wanted to say the Tom Hardy version, but for now, he technically isn't a Spider-Man enemy. The one from Spider-Man Unlimited was just dumb as fuck. The one from Ultimate Spider-Man isn't really the Venom I know and love, because it's Harry Osborn. It's the 90s cartoon where he is the best version of Eddie Brock's Venom. He's just standing a reporter that hates Spider-Man. So much of Eddie's shit life, he blames on Spider-Man. Obviously, Spider-Man bonds with the symbiote first and becomes more powerful, but starts being more evil. The symbiote nearly makes him kill Rhino and Shocker, and gives us this amazing bit of voice acting, by the way.
Shocker! You can't escape me! I'll chase you to the ends of the earth!
When he ditches the symbiote, it finds Eddie, and within 5 seconds you can tell he is going to be fucking dangerous. He has everything about Venom, where he can do everything Spider-Man can, but he's stronger, knows everything about Spider-Man, and he doesn't trigger his spider sense. There are 2 things I love about this Venom over the rest. One, his design. I love the little pupils in his eyes that he has, and also just the red and blue, it just looks so nice. But the other thing is how he actually scares Peter. It is very clear that Venom scares Spider-Man because of the fact that he could kill anyone he loves whenever, and there wouldn't be a thing that Spider-Man could do to stop him.
See us everywhere, even in your nightmares.
He gets beaten the first time because Spider-Man outsmarts him, and that's another thing I've always loved about Venom. He's a character that Spider-Man can't beat just from a fight. He always has to be smarter, because when Spider-Man beats every single villain he's ever faced, and then has to face someone who can do everything he can, how the fuck would you beat that in a fight? Pretty much Venom is 100% Spider-Man's greatest fear in this show. When Venom returns, he meets Cletus Cassidy, and eventually Cassidy becomes Carnage. At first, Venom doesn't really react to Carnage being there. You think they'll team up, but no, Venom will literally stop anyone else from killing Spider-Man just to make sure that he gets to be the one that does it. In the end, Eddie falls in love with Dr. Kafka, who was his therapist when he was in prison, and that made him actually want to separate from the symbiote for good. But when Carnage kidnaps Dr. Kafka, he rebonds with it, helps Spider-Man and Iron Man to stop Carnage so he can find her, and in the end, he sacrifices himself to supposedly defeat Carnage.
I'm not going in there alone! Ashley! Eddie! I'll always love you!
Now, the last that was seen of him was him going into another dimension to stop Carnage. So, honestly, how cool would it be if he were to return in Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse? That would make me nuts so hard, and I think he should. Number 2, Wolf Spider from Ultimate Spider-Man.
Every universe, Peter Parker stands for heroism and responsibility. Except for one.
No.
In Season 4, Miles and Peter destroy the Siege Perilous and have to go to different universes to find all the pieces, but so is someone else, this being Wolf Spider. This is just simply an evil version of Peter who wants to destroy every other Spider-Man in every dimension, and actually succeeds. He became the most powerful Spider-Man in every universe, but as the good Spider-Man says it, he poisoned himself by taking the life forces of heroes. Just the fact that he is so evil that draining the life of good people kills him. Now that makes for a good villain. And of course, being an evil Peter Parker, he knows everything about Spider-Man. And number 1, the final spot, my all-time favorite Spider-Man villain. I'm actually gonna give this to Spider Carnage from the 90s cartoon.
Ever since that spider bit me, the world has misunderstood me and tormented me. Now it's my turn. I'm gonna obliterate you all!
This guy was one evil bastard. He's a Peter Parker who sadly had a much shittier life than the rest. Obviously, he lost Uncle Ben, then he loses Aunt May, then he meets Miles Warren, then he gets cloned. That clone ends up becoming Scarlet Spider. Then he has some news that apparently he might have been the clone and Scarlet Spider might have been the original Peter because for some reason they just don't have the memories or something. Then one day when Kingpin found a way to open portals to different dimensions, Scarlet Spider tried to stop him, and then the evil Peter Parker tried to kill Scarlet Spider because he hated him. And then, out of nowhere, the Carnage symbiote returns from another dimension and bonds with evil Spider-Man to become Spider Carnage. He then literally destroys the entirety of his New York. Spider Carnage tricks Kingpin into thinking he's just going to create a device that will control people's minds. But what he actually wants to do is destroy every reality to ever exist. Obviously, again, he knows everything about Spider-Man, but it's just the fact that you take one of the most heroic characters in the Marvel Universe of all time and then combine him with one of the most evil and most powerful villains in the Marvel Universe. That's why I love him so much. It's like he has Carnage's want to just kill every single person to ever exist, but he still has Peter Parker's brains to do it on a much larger scale. It was the series finale for the 90s cartoon, and it took multiple Spider-Men from multiple universes to team up to stop him. In the end, he ends up going into a dimension where Spider-Man has the best life, and in that life, there is Uncle Ben in that universe. He reminds Spider-Carnage of the famous line, with great power comes great responsibility, and the evil Peter realizes that he has to do the right thing and ends up sacrificing himself because he can't get rid of the Carnage symbiote, which is honestly really sad. Like, he had a shit life, and when he tried to do the right thing, he just couldn't, so the only thing he could do was just to kill himself. I also just really like his design. I don't know what it is, I just think he's a wicked villain, and to be honest, if there is one villain I'd ever want to see come into live action on the big screen, it would be him. That is my top 5 list for favourite Spider-Man villains of all time across different shows. But lads, thank you for watching. If you have your own list, then please let me know, because I'm interested to know what everyone else thinks, and if anyone disagrees, well then also, please let me know, because, as again, I'm interested. But yeah, this was a completely different video from what I usually do, and this is like a one-time thing. It's mainly just because Spider-Man No Way Home is coming out, and I'm so fucking excited to watch it, and then when I do watch it, the hype's going to be dead, and everyone's going to be so sad because I think Tobey's going to die. Till next time, lads, I hope you enjoy the movie, because I'm most likely, if you're watching this, you're going to go see it.